The time is just gone 10 minutes to 10 a.m. and we've heard the announcement come through from South Africa's Minister of Finance talking about a rand-denominated Islamic bond, which is on the cards. The National Treasury will launch what is called this rand-denominated Islamic bond in 2021, 2022, and this as a way of diversifying the debt portfolio and introducing a new set of savers into the funding era. And we're joined on the line by Abdullah Ameed, who is the Financial Director at Albaraka Bank. Abdullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Jummah Mubarak, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah Inayat, Jummah Mubarak to you and the listeners. Thanks for having us on the show.
Yes, Abdullah, what do you make of this announcement that has come through and the interest of the National Treasury? Now, we know in the past they had issued a Sukuk bond, which was the first African nation, South Africa being a first African nation to issue this Sharia-compliant bond. Now, it is clear that they are recognizing that Sharia finance has got a major role to play, and also looking at recognizing the fact, the value that Sharia-compliant financial products bring to the economy at large.
Definitely. Excellent initiative by the South African Reserve Bank together with National Treasury. This is something that is been in the works for some time. It is something that the government sukuk that was issued internationally was oversubscribed by 4 times. It was mainly placed outside of our country because it was dollar denominated. But this one's very much locally focused, with it being rand denominated. The details are still developing on this, so we don't have the full amounts, etc., and how and when exactly this will be issued, but it's still exciting. I think the biggest benefactors to this will be banks and funds, both equity funds that have regulated requirements as well as other funds to place government investment.
Yes. Now, you mentioned the biggest benefactors will be banks. Just looking at it from an Albaraka perspective, how does Albaraka feel about it?
So currently, we have regulatory requirements to keep certain reserves with the central bank, and that is in interest-bearing instruments, which we do not have any ability to control. We do take the interest and donate it out, so it doesn't taint our income and our profits paid to our depositors. The benefits of having a Sharia compliant sukuk from National Treasury will allow us to then invest our minimum regulatory requirements into these instruments, and therefore what we currently earn as impermissible income will now be earning as permissible income. The benefit comes back to both us as the bank, our shareholders, and our depositors as well. So we then are able to share these returns with our depositors. So while the minimum requirement still remains, that income now changes from being impermissible to permissible. Beyond that, liquidity management for most banks and Islamic banks, ourselves being the fully fledged Islamic bank in South Africa, all our liquidity is self-contained, and we do need to manage that. So currently we place those with other participants other than government to be able to earn a Sharia compliant return. Government, obviously, the risk with government is much lower. So there's a number of factors to banks from a regulatory perspective that work in our benefit. One, we won't need to hold a capital requirement against these funds if we had to place them with government. Currently, where we place them across other banks, even though in Sharia compliant investments, they attract a capital component, which makes them a little bit costlier to the bank and our investors as well. These benefits have a threefold impact. So one is the capital component, which I just mentioned now, the profitability as well from government. Those we've seen that these type of instruments attract a higher return. So we're expecting that these will come out higher than what we're currently yielding on interbank and other investments. And lastly, the quality of the liquidity of this asset is considered high quality. So it also adds to other regulatory requirements around liquidity called the LCR, etc., and NSFR, which are complicated regulatory requirements that banks have to deal with. But for our lives, it will make it much easier if we can see a large issuance from National Treasury on this.
Yes. Now, also, Abdullah, when we're talking about a Sharia-compliant instruments and the value that instruments bring to not only to banks but also to investors, and this being rand-denominated, we're talking about local investors, but also in terms of reaching out to global investors, reaching out to countries like the Middle East, for instance, because this is where they see, the government or the treasury sees a lot of value when it comes to investor distribution across countries like the Middle East and other Islamic countries who may have an interest in investing in South Africa and investing in this type of product.
Sure. And if I deal with them separately, local and then international, I think international markets are, local markets are definitely something that we've been pushing as the Islamic banking industry for government to recognize and to manage in terms of liquidity requirements, etc. The one is the institutional side of it, but that also opens up the avenue for local investments at a private level, at an individual level. So you, as you know, you get government retail bonds, which you are able to invest in, but those are not Sharia compliant at this stage. Effectively, they're interest based. Our hope is that this issuance will also have that ability to create another investment instrument also for individuals. So beyond managing institutions, it will have that added benefit locally. For international issuances, generally international investors are looking for dollar hedged instruments. So they wouldn't be too excited about a rand-based instrument because of the volatility of our currency. And therefore, the $500 million sukuk that was issued in 2014 was significantly well received because of the fact that it was dollar denominated. I think government would look at doing further investments like that in the near future based on some of the infrastructure spend that we're looking at. And to tap into the Islamic markets like the Middle Eastern markets, definitely it's a proven fact that our government does have the ability to attract those type of funds internationally.
Well, certainly, and these funds are absolutely necessary considering where we are economically in this country, and we are looking at investment all around, whether they be local or global.
Correct. I think the challenges of our country are many. We've got a long road to build, but it's also exciting that as a developing country, all of this infrastructure is still coming about. The recent announcements by the president in terms of electrical vehicles and the infrastructure to go green in terms of reducing our carbon footprint. These are all things that as a nation we are committed to. We need to look at it in terms of not only our current circumstances, but also the legacy for our future generations and our kids who we love and pride so much. It's not only just educating them and giving them good values, but also looking at their interests in terms of the country that we're going to leave behind for them. So these infrastructure projects are important, and if government is able to bring funding in a Sharia compliant manner, it makes it easier for us also as Muslim citizens to be contributors to that directly.
Well, Abdullah, these are clearly exciting times, I know, for you and for Albaraka Bank, and generally for many of us right across the entire country. But for now, Jazakallah, we appreciate you taking time out this morning, talking to us and providing us with the update. All the best to you, inshallah. Have yourself a wonderful Jummah. Jazakallah for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah Inayat. Wa alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Abdullah Ameed, Financial Director at Albaraka Bank, with us this morning, which brings us to the end of this morning's edition of News and Views. Once again, it's been great. It's been wonderful being in the company of our listeners on the various platforms, on Salam Media, on Al Ansar, Durban, Pietermaritzburg, and also out of Polokwane, One Nation 88.9 FM. Have yourself a great Jummah, inshallah, and a wonderful weekend. Until we meet again, from myself and the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.